Let's talk next about annual reviews. The thing to remember about annual reviews is that everybody hates the annual review. I usually don't like to talk in absolutes, but in this case, I feel pretty safe based on my experience, discussions I've had with all levels of management throughout my career. Everybody hates the annual review process. So let's think about why that might be. Let's look at it first from the employee perspective. So, for an annual review, what you're doing is you're taking a particular point in the year, usually either December, January, or maybe based on when you were hired every year. You have an anniversary that includes this annual review. You look back at the past 12 months. It's annual. So you're looking at what you've done in the last year. So that means that if you haven't been keeping meticulous notes on what you've been doing all year, you have to try to remember what you've been doing. That is painful. But not only that, as you are putting together your review, you have to figure out how what you did 10, 11 months ago is impacting you. From the employer perspective, you're figuring out that exact same thing. So if you have an employee and you're doing your review in December and there's something that happened in February, maybe there was a performance issue. So now you're looking at that performance issue and you have to figure out what to do with it because the employee is looking at it and they're thinking, this was in February, I've now had 8 months of very solid work. I've really shown improvement. This is great. But that issue still existed. And as the employer, you're looking at that, you're looking at, does this employee compare favorably against an employee who didn't have a performance issue back in February that they had to work through? Does it mean more that one employee was more consistent throughout the year and never had any issues? Or does it perhaps mean more that this employee with a performance issue was able to correct it and now had 8 solid months? What do you do with that? And then you have this discussion, and heaven forbid that whatever issue that was is something that the employee didn't remember and that you, as the evaluator, are adding into the annual review. And now all of a sudden there's this big surprise of, oh my gosh, are we talking about that thing again? We've gone through it. I've corrected it. We've been over this. Why are we still bringing it up? It creates hard feelings. And those are just a few of the issues that can happen with an annual review. If you take one thing out of this presentation, if you have the power to eliminate your annual review, do it and replace it with ongoing performance management. Because with ongoing performance management, instead of having that discussion once a year where you're going back over everything, you're continually having that discussion. And you're looking at, what is this employee doing now? What is this team member doing for me right now? What is their current status? And you're giving them that adequate feedback because, hey, here's a clue. Most of the time, people know when something's going wrong. They know if they're not doing a great job, but they don't always know how to ask to fix it. So if you have regular performance management where you have meetings that you go over goals and progress, first of all, they remember those goals. Second of all, you have the opportunity to provide that timely feedback that we've talked about, where you can give that feedback right away instead of waiting another bunch of months to have the discussion and go back and have that question in your minds of, well, why didn't you bring this up before? I would have fixed it if you'd have said something. Say something and fix it. Ongoing performance management. Now, for most of us, we don't have the power to get rid of our annual reviews. They are an institution. And why are they an institution? Because this has been for decades the way that we evaluate performance and attach monetary value to it. It is difficult for large organizations to change. And if the large organizations don't change, the people looking at the large organizations as models don't change either. So you get stuck in this rut where everybody's doing these annual reviews. If you cannot change to an actual ongoing management system where you get rid of the annual review altogether, at least try to change it to an annual appraisal where instead of going back and looking at everything that's happened in the past year, you're able to evaluate your team based on how are you doing right now. And it becomes just another part of the conversation. You can restructure whatever whatever format the annual review is supposed to take place in, you can restructure that to be an annual appraisal so that there are still no surprises, so that you're still having those ongoing conversations. But if you have to add this step in, you can do it nicely and seamlessly. The big key being no surprises and keep the focus on how are you doing right now? Because that's what people want to know about. That's what helps you avoid hard feelings. That's what helps you avoid all of that nervousness that people have as they're preparing for this review because they're thinking, I don't know how I'm doing. If you're just having a discussion once a year, I don't know how I'm doing. I want to be doing well, but I'm not sure. And I've got all of this information that I can put out there to say, I've been doing well. And then my boss looks at it and says, yep, you've been doing all of those things, but here's my perspective. And there's a clash. You don't want that clash, which is why that ongoing performance management is the best option. If you can't have that, at least make the annual discussion an appraisal rather than a review, so that you're just talking about what's going on right now and everything stays current.